The invaders of the Black Shroud were relentless. These sudden and unprovoked attacks on Gridanian soil were an affront to the peace and tranquility of the Twelveswood, and would not go unanswered. The Lancers and Archers of Gridania fought tooth and nail to keep their lands safe, some even proving to be greater than their peers. One such archer shook the battlefield with their voice. As if weaving their words into their arrows, they'd shout a melody before releasing their bowstring and allowing their attack to rip through multiple opponents. Everyone was in awe, and the sound of their battle songs encouraged those around them to fight even harder. But even after the battle was won, their work wasn't finished. Many of their comrades were crestfallen from having lost their friends or family to these bloody battles, and some were wrapped with pain as their bodies struggled to live. The archer laid down their bow and instead pulled a harp from their satchel. They sighed, closed their eyes, and took a deep breath before gently strumming their instrument. A song echoed through the Twelveswood that night, one of peace, comfort, and life. Those consumed with grief were made to cry and accept their losses. Those fighting to survive discovered new strength as they pulled through with newfound resolve, and those too wounded to keep going listened closely as they closed their eyes and departed our world, their soul carried back to the ethereal realm by a kind melody. These songs would continue to echo through the forest, stirring not only mortal men and women, but enchanting the elementals to rejoice and bringing the Mughals to dance. So moving were their lyrics, so confident were their hands. Whether their fingers were exciting an instrument to play a familiar tune, or pulling back the tight string of a bow, both feats were impressive on their own. But it was when these archers sang with bow in hand and arrow drawn that nature itself paused to become their audience. Welcome back, my friends. Today we'll be covering another discipline that is well known and well respected in the lands of Eorzea. They're one of the youngest professions, arriving halfway through the Sixth Astral Era. Though not as old when compared to other jobs, it's proven itself to be a boon not only on the battlefield, but during times of peace as well. This ability of being beneficial regardless of where they are or what the social climate is has made their profession more flexible than any other. Today, my friends, let us enjoy the requiem of war and a lullaby of peace. Today, let us discuss what it means to be a bard. As stated before, the history of the bard is very young when compared to most disciplines we've discussed. It's largely agreed upon that the earliest records of a bard's existence only go back as far as the 11th century in the Sixth Astral Era. Or rather, the beginning of Eorzea's Age of Strife for those that recall their history lessons. It wasn't until the year 1076 that Joran Lightheart finally brokered peace between the people of Gelmora and the elementals of the Black Shroud. Quarry Mill would quickly be established, and then the city-state of Gridania would steadily begin to grow more and more into what we recognize it as today. However, this time of quick and sudden development above ground was stressful and violent in some cases. It's true that Gridania rose to become powerful and influential very quickly thanks to the help of the elementals, but this wasn't without its trials. The Age of Strife was a time of almost constant flux. Borders between nations were always changing due to the small skirmishes with beast tribes and other factions, changing the shape and scope of the city-states on a regular basis. This was even more obvious for Gridania since they had only just begun to emerge from the shell of Gelmora. It was during this time of violent evolution that early Gridanians had to be on almost constant watch for potential invasion. This created no end of stress for the young archers that watched over and protected the budding nation from would-be attackers. But instead of giving in to the anxiety and depression of their situation, one of these archers began to sing. They started to hum, serenade, and even strum their bowstring as a way of coping with the stress. and this began to lift the hearts of those around them, easing the tension. Others with a talent for music or a good singing voice began to join in as well. These musicians improvised and did a lot to increase the morale of Gridania's early settlers. A small tune to enjoy during patrols, a cheerful melody to play during feasts. Music lifted the heart and eased the soul of a young Gridania. It's still debated how and when the first bard began to whisper Aether into their notes, but eventually they did. Music wasn't just for recreation and peace anymore, as early bards realized they could weaponize their songs by weaving Aether into their tunes. The Mughals of the Twelveswood will tell you it was them that taught the first bards this magical practice, that they were so impressed by the melodies they sung that they wished to teach early bards how Mughals created magical songs. But given a Mughal's penchant for hyperbole and story spinning, no one knows if this is completely true or not. In fact, there are no solid records of when the first battle songs were created by the bards. But what we do have records on are how effective they were. Groups of Gridanian soldiers that were outnumbered and outgunned would find themselves on the winning side with a bard in their group. Their magic-based songs stimulated their troops, encouraging them to fight harder and crushing their enemies' morale. The early bards were instrumental in helping Gridania establish their borders and push back the near-constant invasion of the Ixal. These battle songs were so potent that military leaders began to take notice and tried to mass-produce this by creating a branch of musical infantry. But none of these people that were made to mimic the powers of a bard had the heart for it. The battlefield became cluttered with songs that had no essence, soul, or aether in them. They may have been singing, and it may have even been a catchy tune, but it didn't rouse a person's spirit or empower them. During this age of pretender bards, the genuine profession began to fall out of favor as people didn't realize just how strong the real deal was anymore. Eventually, true bards began to disappear, with only a few ever existing in the Black Shroud at any given time. The Mughals in the Twelveswood were so offended by the people's disrespect of this craft that they took the soul stones of the fallen or retired bards, choosing only to hand them out to people they believe could truly honor the discipline. They are so picky about this selection process that many people have forgotten the true strength behind a bard's bow and lyrics. But in the early years of the 7th Astral Era, there are whispers in Gridania of this discipline steadily emerging from obscurity and filling the world with their magical melodies all over again. And that is the brief yet turbulent history of bards. They emerged from nervous archers only to grow into their own unique form of spellcraft. It's likely a blessing that the Mughals spirited away and held onto their soulstones, else the legacy of Gridania's early guardians may have been forgotten entirely. But, now that you know their history, let us discuss how their songs and abilities made them so powerful on the battlefield. The roots of a bard's discipline are that of archery. To a bard, a bow is like an instrument of the battlefield, with their arrows singing quiet songs of ruin for their enemies. Long before they learn how to speak aether into the world, a bard needs to have a strong bow arm and precision to match it. Training with a bow and becoming an excellent archer will serve them well, as their fingers will be conditioned to move quickly and deliberately. They need to be able to strike moving targets effortlessly and fire arrows with great precision at very long ranges. The training can be intense, but once they've mastered archery, it's time to move on to the songs and instruments a bard is known for. These battle songs are more than just random scores of notes and lyrics. They each have meaning, and by allowing their aether to carry their songs, the melodies become living enchantments. These enchanting battle songs rouse their companions, stimulating their own aether and strengthening them. A bard has a variety of songs and notes to play for different effects, but they mostly boil down to empowering an ally's attacks and strengthening their defense. though some tunes are even known to cleanse the body or make one's aether more receptive to healing magics. As you can see, almost all of a bard's songs are supportive in nature, meant to act as a boon to their friends and compatriots. For a moment, let us discuss the nature of their most popular battle songs. Mage's Ballad is one such song. It tells the tale of an elder Pajal who braved the front lines in order to heal wounded soldiers. Likewise, Army's Paean tells the story of Lance Master Jocelyn. During her time, she was a lancer without equal and a celebrated hero of the Twelveswood. Army's Paean celebrates her valor and how she became the first captain of Gridania's Wood Whalers. The last of a bard's most popular battle songs is called the Wanderer's Minuet. This song describes how Oshan, the god of travelers, is an archer with unmatched skill. But rather than abusing his gifts, he meanders around the world, partaking of the joys it can bring. These three songs are the most well-known in a bard's collective history. There are others, but they're more obscure, such as the dangerous Ballad of Oblivion. But the greatest power of a bard comes from combining their mastery of archery and musical talent. You see, the lingering magic in the air created by their songs can serve to empower their arrows, and once released, fly with such speed and strength that even powerful targets are brought to their knees. All of this support and lethal attacks are being performed at a comfortable range, allowing the bard to focus. There's no need for defensive tactics since they can simply empower those comrades that are taking the hits for them. But their magic-infused songs aren't only for combat. They've the remarkable power to lift the spirits of the melancholy, relax the tension between people, and are even known to ease the pains of those that are dying. Their requiems ease the passage of those departing the world of the living, likely ensuring they don't return as an undead. The notes of their music are a language all their own, a language that all spirits and creatures seem to understand and respect. Now that we have a firm grasp on how a bard contributes to their parties, let us discuss their choice of weapons and attire. Like many of the disciplines we've discussed, the bow and arrow has existed much longer than the bard has, easily dating back to the first astral era. Every culture around the world has its own history and variation on the bow and arrow, but it's always been seen as a weapon of elegance and skill, since it can silently dispatch even the most rowdy foes at a sizable distance. What makes a bard's bow special is how it becomes more than just a weapon. Many designs would see that their bows are able to not only act as a peerless weapon on the battlefield, but also as a melodic instrument as well. Many bows have been built with a harp as part of the weapon itself for that exact reason. Instead of carrying their weapon and multiple instruments with them, their bow and tools double as their instruments, making their weapons serve more than one purpose and giving them a unique eye-catching design as well. Now let us move on to their choice of attire. To be completely honest, a bard's attire is the least grounded of any discipline, as there are many factors that go into what constitutes a bard's outfit. The only common theme between their clothes is that a bard's ensemble is meant to be flamboyant. The reason for this is because of their chosen profession. They might be lethal archers and support infantry, but how do they make their money when there's no battles to be won? The answer is simple: they perform. During peace times, they make their rounds as singers, musicians, storytellers, and more, as they use their choice of clothing to draw the eyes of a crowd and keep it on them. How a bard chooses to decorate themselves is usually unique to the bard in question, and rarely do they ever look the same. The history of a bard's clothes are so scattered that there are even theories that suggest some of the original designs were meant to be ceremonial garbs that paid respect to Althic, the god of time. Even a bard's favorite instrument is known to influence their appearance on some level, so trying to assert that there's one singular style that all bards gravitate towards is hopeless. And that, my friends, will conclude our lessons on the varied skills of the bard. It's not uncommon for a discipline to combine more than one skill into something uniquely powerful, but a bard's power and appearance does help them stand out more than the rest. However, while they do try to be the focus of attention outside of combat, they understand their role within the heat of battle very well, and are unashamed to take a back seat and lift up their allies instead. To those that walk the path of the bard, hear me now. Yours is a path of stories, songs, and hidden talent. Your presence will ease the suffering of those in pain and remind the downtrodden to smile. Allow your scores to help push your allies to even greater heights. And while your enemy is distracted, let the song of their ruin carry your arrow with such speed and precision that they won't even hear it until you've dealt them the telling blow. Hello everyone! Thanks for staying to the end of the lesson. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, subscribe and like this video to let me know I'm doing well. If there is a topic you'd want me to cover in the future, leave a comment about it and I'll see what I can do. Until next we meet, I'll be researching even more of our world's rich lore to share with you. Till then, stay safe my friends.